No room left? Look again. Your beds look the way every backyard garden looks by August. Squash sprawled past its row, cucumber vines crawling into the bean patch, the bottom leaves already spotted from being packed in too tight. You figure that is it for the season. Nothing left to plant, nowhere left to put it. The only thing full is the ground. The air above it has been sitting empty since June. And August is the window to use it before the first frost starts closing the calendar. 7 vertical crops fit into that exact space. No new soil, no tearing anything out to make room. And one of them is not even a summer crop. It is the one that is just getting started, right when everything else on this list starts slowing down. Number 1. Malabar spinach, the not really spinach vine that thrives after yours bolts. Your lettuce quit back in June. Your spinach bolted before the 4th of July. Somewhere behind those beds there is a stretch of trellis that has stood empty since early summer, and you have probably written that patch off for the year. It isn't done. You picked the wrong leaf for August, not the wrong month. Here's the part most people miss. You've watched your lettuce and true spinach give up the second real heat lands, and that's because both come from cool, damp corners of the world. The instant long, hot days show up, they panic. They throw up a flower stalk and quit, because heat, to them, reads like the end is close. Malabar spinach never got that memo. It grows wild in hot, humid tropical climates, where 90 degrees with heavy air is just an average Tuesday for it. Heat doesn't spook this plant, it's what wakes it up. This is Malabar spinach, and despite the name, it isn't kin to true spinach at all. It's a vine, thick and glossy, and it climbs. Give it a sturdy trellis, an old fence, even a cattle panel leaned against the shed, and it will run 6 to 10 feet before frost finally shuts it down. A short run of plants up one simple trellis is all it takes, so you're not giving up a wide bed, you're only giving up a narrow strip and some height. In Zone 7 and warmer, it often comes back on its own the next spring. Colder than that, you're starting fresh every year, and that's fine. In the south, drop seed straight into the ground right now. Farther north, buy or start a plant that already has a foot of vine on it because bare seed dropped into cooling soil won't catch up in time. Space your plants a foot to a foot and a half apart along the trellis, and you're picking real leaves inside 55 to 65 days. If your nights are still dipping into the 50s, hold off. This vine sulks in cold soil no matter how warm the days feel. Wait for a real stretch of heat, then get it in the ground. Everything else in the salad bowl gave up on summer weeks ago. This one is just getting started. Number 2. Market More 76 cucumber. The seed you already own, just grown straight up. You've probably already got a packet of these seeds sitting in a drawer somewhere. You just never put them on a trellis. You plant the same cucumber you've planted for years, same seed packet, same corner of the bed. This time, instead of letting the vine sprawl flat across the dirt, you walk it straight up a trellis instead. That one change does more than save space. A cucumber lying on wet soil stays damp long after the rest of the bed dries out. You've probably seen that yourself after a morning watering. Lift the vine onto a trellis and air moves through the leaves instead of pooling underneath them. The fruit hangs straight down, and gravity does the shaping for you. This is Market More 76, 58 to 68 days to first cucumber, and it grows in almost every zone once the soil warms. Give each plant about 12 inches along the trellis and let it climb. Same seed, same 58 days, just pointed in a different direction now. Number 3. Tromboncino squash, the zucchini relative the vine borer can't touch. Every zucchini plant I ever lost died the exact same way, fine on Monday, wilted flat by Friday. Turns out there was a squash that never had that problem, and it climbs. The first time it happened, I did everything the seed packet told me. Watered on schedule, fed it right, gave it full sun against the back fence. Then, one week, The whole plant just folded over like someone let the air out of it. And I hadn't missed a single watering. Same fence, same spot, 3 summers running, always sometime in July. I finally pulled the base out of the ground to see what killed it. And the stem near the soil line was hollow, packed with a sawdust-looking mess where something had been living inside it the whole time. I stood there holding a dead zucchini plant with a tunnel bored straight through it and no idea a bug could do that from the inside. That bug is the squash vine borer, and it's one of the pests that can make a healthy zucchini collapse almost overnight. The moth lays its eggs right at the base of the stem. The larva hatches, burrows in, and eats its way through from the inside, while the leaves up top still look green. Think of the stem like a garden hose. Chew a hole in that hose, and it doesn't matter how much water and food you pour in at the roots, none of it reaches the rest of the plant. By the time you notice wilting, the damage is already done. Regular zucchini and yellow squash have soft, hollow stems, which makes them an easy target. After losing count of dead zucchini, this is the one that finally stuck. Tromboncino, sometimes sold as Zucchetta rampicante, is Cucurbita moschata, a different species than regular zucchini entirely. Its stem is dense and solid, so the moth has a much harder time laying eggs there in the first place. It shrugs off powdery mildew better than most summer squash too, and where the zucchini next to it were down to bare stalks by August, this one just kept climbing. It's a true vine, not a bush, so give it a trellis strong enough to hold 12 to 15 feet of growth by season's end. Let it climb, and the fruit hangs straight instead of curling on the ground. It grows almost anywhere, zone 4 through 11, with no special timing tricks. Pick it young, close to the 60-day mark, and it works in every recipe that calls for zucchini. Because it's a different species, it takes longer to reach that first tender squash than regular zucchini does. If you're after something in 30 or 40 days, this isn't it. Past that, it grows about as easy as anything else in the garden. The borer never got another shot after that. Number 4. Cucamelon, the tiny melon with a secret underground battery. It looks like a watermelon someone shrank in the wash. It tastes like a cucumber with a squeeze of lime, and it might be the laziest vine you plant all year. For the money. Nothing else on this list works less for more. You could dig up the tuber every October and replant it every spring, the way some gardeners do. Or you could just let the vine die back and start fresh from seed. Neither one costs you anything. Either way works fine. The tuber trick just means you never really lose the plant, even through a hard winter. A vine this thin looks like it should need constant attention. It doesn't. Here's why it barely needs you once it's rooted in. Down under the soil, cucamelon grows small tubers, tiny storage tanks that look a lot like miniature potatoes. You won't find that on a cucumber or a regular squash. No reserve tank down there means no backup plan when the ground dries out. Cucamelon just draws on its own stash and keeps climbing. That's the difference you'll notice by August. Your cucumber's wilting in a dry stretch while this one barely slows down. This is Melothria scabra, native to Mexico and Central America, and it climbs by tendril, wrapping itself around a trellis with no tying or training needed from you. The vine runs 10 feet or more in a single season. Days to first fruit sit around 60 to 75. Snack on them straight off the vine, seeds and all, or toss a handful into a salad for the crunch. Outside zone 7. That tuber won't make it through winter in the ground. So you either dig it up and store it inside or start fresh from seed come spring. Either way, the plant itself asks almost nothing of you once it's established. Plant it once, forget about it. Pick tiny watermelons in September. 2 entries from now, there's a vine that most people think its planting window already slammed shut. It didn't. It's just getting quiet enough outside for it to actually work. Number 5. Kentucky Wonder Pole Bean, one more harvest on the trellis you already built. Everyone treats pole beans like a spring-only crop. Do the math on the calendar and August tells a different story. If the trellis your spring beans just finished on is still standing, you already have everything you need for round 2. Kentucky Wonder is the same heirloom pole bean most gardeners already grow. Heavy yields, easy to find, nothing fancy about it. This time you're just planting it later in the season. Beans don't care about long summer days the way some crops do. What they actually need is warm soil, something north of 60 degrees to get the seed moving. Give them that, and you're on a short clock. 65 to 72 days, seed to pod. Start counting from early August and you land in October, usually ahead of the first hard frost, as long as your zone still has around 10 weeks of warmth left. This isn't a second chance crop, it's a second season built right into the calendar you already have. Kentucky Wonder, Phaseolus vulgaris. Climbs the same poles or trellis you used in spring. Sow the seed about an inch deep, 3 to 4 inches apart along the structure. If your days are still sitting above 90 degrees straight through, hold off for now. The pods won't set well in that kind of heat. One thing to know before you plant a second round: if your zone has less than about 65 warm days left before frost, usually zone 3 or 4 late in the season, this timing gets risky. Look for a shorter, maturing bean instead, or skip the second planting entirely this year. Same poles, same string. One more crop before the frost gets here. Number 6. Sugar snap pea, the crop that wins right when everything else quits. You think the trellis season is winding down. One crop on this list is just now getting ready to have its best month. Of everything on this list, this is the one I would not skip. Snap peas don't care about summer heat because they were never built for it. What they actually want is exactly what August starts handing out: cooler nights, milder days, soil that finally lets go of that midsummer baking. Sow them the first week of August, and you're pulling pods by October, ahead of the first hard frost in most zones. While every other crop on this list is watching the calendar run out, this one is just waking up. Here's the part that matters. Your pea plant was never built to enjoy summer. It spends the hot months just surviving, waiting for the air to cool off. Plant it in spring, and you're asking it to race the heat for its whole life before powdery mildew catches up to it. Plant it now, right as things cool down, and you skip that struggle completely. The plant grows stronger. That timing change doesn't erase every risk on its own, so if it's common where you garden, pick a resistant climbing variety. And the pods that develop in that cool fall air actually turn sweeter on you, because the plant starts converting starch into sugar as the temperature drops. Same pea, better timing, better flavor. An old gardener I know, 30-some years working the same half-acre, told me something one afternoon that stuck with me. Most people, he said, treat peas like a spring afterthought, a quick crop before the real garden gets going, then they forget about them the rest of the year. He called that a mistake and said it like it should have been obvious the whole time. Peas, he told me, are a 2-season crop. Skip the fall planting, and you're leaving half of what your garden could give you sitting in the ground, unplanted, every single year without knowing it. This is sugar snap pea, the climbing kind, not the dwarf bush type. Look for sugar snap or super sugar snap on the seed rack, not sugar Ann, which stays low and never touches your trellis. Days to maturity run 60 to 70 depending on which one you grow. Put it on a trellis 4 to 8 feet tall, right where your summer beans or squash are already fading out. That's the same structure doing double duty, so this second crop doesn't cost you another board or fence post. Sow the seeds an inch or 2 apart and time it about 2 months ahead of your first frost date. If you're in zone 9 or 10 and the heat is still hanging on through late September, hold off until early September instead. The soil needs to cool down enough for the seed to actually germinate well. Wait for that window rather than forcing it early, and the payoff is worth the patience. Everything else on this list is racing the frost. This one's racing toward it. If a second harvest that costs you nothing extra because it just reuses the trellis already standing in your yard is the kind of thing you want more of, hit subscribe and turn on the bell. There's a new one every week. Number 7. Yard-long bean. The bean built for the heat that kills every other bean. Right around the time your regular green beans stall out in the August heat, there's a bean that's just hitting its stride. A woman down in the hot part of the South wrote to me about this one. Every July and August, her regular snap beans quit setting pods, same as clockwork, no matter what she fed them or how much she watered. She switched to yard-long beans one summer out of curiosity, and suddenly she had beans running straight through the hottest stretch of the year, no gap at all. Here's what nobody's putting together about that gap. If your snap beans have flowers dropping off in the worst of the heat, that's not your fault and it's not the plant dying. Once the air sits above roughly 90 degrees for stretches at a time, that heat damages the pollen before it can do its job, and the flower just falls. The plant keeps growing. It has simply stopped setting fruit. That's why so many gardeners think their bean season ended in July, when really it's just the wrong bean for the hottest month you have. Yard-long bean grew up in hot, humid, tropical climates, and that same 90-degree stretch that shuts your regular beans down barely registers with this one. This is the yard-long bean, sometimes called asparagus bean, Vigna unguiculata subsp. Sesquipedalis. A popular variety called red noodle can run anywhere from 70 to 90 days from seed to first harvest, depending on your season, and the vine itself is no joke. 8 to 12 feet of growth, pods hanging 12 to 24 inches long, and it keeps coming through the hottest stretch of summer and right on into fall. Give it a trellis at least 6 to 8 feet tall and built sturdy, because this vine gets heavy fast. Sow the seed 4 to 6 inches apart right at the base of whatever support you're using. One honest limitation before you commit to this. That 70 to 90 day window means you need roughly 80 warm days left between planting and your first frost. In most of Zone 4 through 6, planting this in August cuts it close. Zone 7 and warmer, you're fine. Colder than that, make a note to plant it in June next year instead. And let this year's beds carry something faster to harvest. Your other beans clocked out weeks ago. This one's just punching in. 7 plants, and not one of them needed a fresh patch of dirt. They just needed the air that's been sitting empty above your beds since June. Every one of them solved the space problem by going up, not out. One more thing before you go buy any lumber. You don't need 7 separate trellises for these 7 plants. Put the peas on the exact trellis your spent pole beans just came down from, and let that one piece of structure work 2 crops in one season. This afternoon, before you do anything else out there, walk over to your bean or squash bed and look straight up. Measure how much open air sits above those vines, from the dirt to well over your head. That number tells you exactly what size trellis fits, and whether you're planting Malabar spinach up there or squeezing in a run of snap peas before October. The dirt ran out of room back in July. The air above it never did.